Well, hey folks, it's just about dawn. Dawn's early light here in Aniana, Central Time, directly south of Chicago, a little bit to the east. And it's too late to go to bed, and I have suffered profound insomnia ever since. Lots of bad waves and waves and waves of bad luck, or a tsunami that just keeps on sweeping things away. And it isn't that I'm panicky or anything like that. It's just that the stress at being ripped apart materially affects my behavior. And I'd like to sleep, but there's no peace of mind, so I feel like, an exuberant teenager who's working hard and playing hard and eventually crashes. The word was used back then, that you keep going until you crashed. But that it doesn't really work. I'm really not a teenager, although in some minds you probably know that there's a famous book about metamorphosis. I don't feel that I'm changing that way, but yes, I know other people feel like I'm a roach. For your amusement, or not your amusement, for their amusement. And then too, I've often said, there's no place in the world, as far as I'm concerned, working pest control and stuff like that. I have met people who are sanctimonious or somehow emotionally involved with roaches as evil, Orkin coming in to kill roaches, and you would think that he was a gladiator or something, and a righteous moral mission involving the immorality of roaches, rather than recognizing them as creatures doing their own thing that shouldn't be sharing the same space with families and so on of human beings. I've seen a lot of that, though, in a lot of ways. And of course, horror stories are that, people adopt some sort of view of humanity that way, that if you're top dog, then without any emotion, oh no, it's all logic, right? I mean, really. It's a horrible storyline in a lot of ways if it doesn't have any irony or humor, but the idea is horrific, some logical menace who unemotionally would eliminate inconvenient organisms. I guess it's a theme that will be used by many times over. I think of Orson Welles. I thought that was well done. I've looked on the internet, but very often, there's a lack of cooperation. For example, lately I've noticed that, people say there's a big struggle about a consensus about what's going to happen, what might happen to me, whether there's a tsunami or not, or, but I mean, if the internet people slow to a crawl, and then also, what are the probabilities? I've done nothing in particular, and yet 2 platforms say that I'm bad. Well, I guess anything can be attributed to me all over again. And then what? Now they have a new excuse called AI. Whatever is happening, they'll say, oh, we're, dealing with that. Well, I haven't contacted anybody. I've let one group know that I think they're more stand-up and straightforward than another that I've that has disappointed me, but that the disappointment is not so great. Still, the main reason I started this was just to make an observation. I may be wrong, but I'm a newcomer to X.com. That we won't notify you of the usage. That's standard. People tell me that. And then, but what I'm driving at is that my impression is the people here are rough and tumble and so on, but that those who have anything that might be considered no better than clickbait. I've learned that. Turns out to be clickbait. Those who might be of some interest are strictly top-down, in terms of what they have to offer. Come in.
Good morning.
Good morning. What have you got? Cereal?
Cereal and milk.
I appreciate that. Cereal and milk.
Yes, sir.
That's a big improvement. They used to bring me all that grease and stuff. I didn't need that. Thank you. Have a good morning.
Okay.
All right, well, there's breakfast. What is it now? It's according to this, it's 7:15 a.m. Thursday, the 18th. And so I am having what looks like Wheaties and whole milk. What was I saying? Top down? Yeah, right there. You know how it is around here. People by now know who follow from one thing to another. And plus, the walls have ears and all of that. Anyway, people go out of their way to see to it that I'm aware that ostensibly things are top down. And I would say, people are much more adamant about that, with X.com than the others, where after years of mysterious hocus pocus and shall we say confusion, people are beginning to understand what received wisdom is really worth, and who they are and what they are. I remember one person, you would never have known that she had already graduated and had her practice started. She seemed like a first-year medical student in every regard. One day she piped up and said, well, I have 10 people taking my calls. And I felt like, I won't be, sending you any messages anymore because I happen to have gotten her address or whatever. So, it's, the world is raw because things are half-baked in so many ways. I'm part of that. I'm sketchy all the time. I don't try to do anything, formal in the sense of being very careful to include. I even had a person tell me his address without telling me the complete address, whether it was COM or TV or US, all the new ones. So I had to contact him differently to say, I'm sorry, but you gave me a useless web address. If that's passive aggressive or what, I don't know. But anyway, probably not hear from him. But anyway, I made the effort. Then there are others, I have to say, quick studies, who've suddenly, well, not suddenly, I'll say within a month of what I had to say on the subject, suddenly proved they understood what they could do about, what is that for? As for me, some people actually took that to heart. And it's not a difficult thing to do because, certain things call for certain kinds of structural procedures, and everybody knows you can have as many email addresses as you want, and then you can connect the dots. It's all a matter of what you want to do. Well, on Wick, I'm Wick. I keep saying that. I don't know why that is. Am I correct? Wick or WIX is one of these platforms where you can try to do something, and then you would have to direct people to look for you there. But with respect to X.com, I noticed that it's got a long way to go, to get really into better use. But I can see how for quick messaging among folks, and also a few other things, incidentally, it makes some sense. But as for being a civilized environment, it's not. It's like meeting in a shed, or rather a shelter, and not a shed. That is an industrial facility, all your machinery to work on something under a tin roof that's large enough to prevent all but the humidity from rusting out your tools, but which allows, fresh air, so that if you're if it's an open hearth, too hot, you can't air condition it, but you've got to work there, and it's not yet robotic enough for you to do the whole thing from an office building in Arizona. Your business in Ohio might enjoy the fresh air. So it's it's like that. It's not an enclosed building where something else is being done in an industrial way that doesn't really lend itself to coat and tie or what. All kinds of options. You're not going to get a good analogy from me, but I'm not interested in what you're not interested in what I'm saying, and I can tell you I'm not interested in what I'm saying either. But the point is, friends know where to look, and then they promote stuff, and then I find myself, trying to get rid of certain kinds of ads. Not all of them, certain ones I try to move out of the way. But I'm not looking for any big deal. But on the other hand, some people turn it into, rather strange. People in the communications business who are nothing but top down. Nothing but. So, I've met many, and I guess in terms of American football, for example, they would consider themselves wide receivers. But in terms of being a wide receiver, they're not even in the same time zone. Figuratively speaking. But be that as it may, I would say everybody can lighten up, and about all that. But it's conspicuous. You know, it's conspicuous. Uh, and for example, there's a very elaborate thing to see to it that I might comment. Nobody's going to come to me and say, "Pray tell, what do you think of our procedure compared to that of another?" Only to have me say, "Indeed, yours is better than that of another." But in both cases, you're talking about doing something very messy and problematic, and I wish you the best of luck. Sort of like Edward R. Murrow, I'd say to any number, good night and good luck. Well, yeah, and for those who are steadfast, rather than the quick studies anywhere English is appreciated, I dare say I'm the last person to make rules. I don't get to make many rules. The only thing I can do, like, you know, David Brinkley used to say, if you don't like what's on TV, then turn it off. Well, it's a hell of a note, but you know, right now I'm faced with the imminent loss of all communications from where I am. Yet it's happened to me so many times over that whereas I won't be flipping the switch, it appears somebody else will. By the same token, I've often said that I feel like I'm conducting a railroad and that I have a dead man switch, namely my mouse. And when something becomes insufferable, I simply push the mouse, and whatever it was goes away. Now that begs the question: well, what else is there? You know, there are many Hobson's choices, but you know, that's what makes this whole thing sort of silly. Except that, you know, we're well past the time in my life when what people say they want could possibly obtain, you know. But yes, I agree in using the mouse to shut things off if they're a waste of time, shall I say. I'll borrow that phrase that others use sometimes. Well, you know, I can remember, you know, I'm old enough to have had people younger than me fighting at 30,000 feet over Vietnam, dropping bombs on people below, and we, my colleagues and myself, and not only you know, in the U.S. but beyond, were able to. We commiserated face to face on how these people how could they be so oriented that they would not learn that the bombs they were dropping could not have had any target that was legitimate. I mean, did they really believe that from 30,000 feet, and they took their orders and they dropped their bombs, that they were going to hit, what, a nuclear power plant or a tall dam holding back a vast lake of valuable fresh water, or even office buildings where people designed nefarious equipment, or a factory where they made not only ball bearings but everything else? No, they knew they were dropping bombs on helpless Asian people. They knew that. And when they came back, you know, we didn't have any reason to try to change the world or say much more than, well, you know, we know what you did and we know what you didn't do, and we protested, and some of us, of course, cannot recover. I mean, that's been proven, these many years later. And so they had a top-down attitude. They really did. They had a top-down attitude. And, it just sort of seems a lesson might be relearned. Not at the cost of, how many body bags. Although the Asians didn't have any body bags, they did the best they could. They were being killed, and because of people like LBJ and Billy Graham and any number who decided that was a thing to do. I could go into the details. I think, though, that all of that's past, but it is a little amazing to see people adopting the same affectations when the technology doesn't demand that. For some, there's been, painful epiphany. For others, not much. It doesn't matter. And for others, well, of course, a matter of common sense if you think about it. It's amazing how that, you can titrate, and see what people are going to do that way. You don't have to end up with a group of people who are all the same on the same campus, and all you can do then with all your eggs in one basket is hope that there are enough hired hands to make something good out of them. And well, history shows it hadn't turned out for the best because of the false religion having to do with one variant or another of a top-down attitude. In other words, we're talking about what? Elitism. Not egalitarianism, but elitism. And that doesn't mean that people should be foolish about wandering off into crowds or one thing or another. Look at what happened to John Lennon. I've told that story often. How he and his wife argued about how he was going to, if it hair-lipped hell, he was going to go around the corner from the Dakota into a genteel poverty of a cafe and have a grilled cheese sandwich, a cup of coffee. And he tried, he found that when, John Lennon wanders in, people practically panic or something, and the magic is bad, the mood is bad. Certainly the optics were bad enough, and the sounds, and so he gave up. He told his wife, "You were right. I can't just go around the corner." And he was unwilling to try to disguise himself and so on. So he gave that up. But then later on, he said on the way back from the recording studio, his limo was approaching the Dakota, and he said, "I want to pull up at the front door. I want to get out of the car and see a few stars. It's a clear night. I want to see the stars before I go up to the apartment." She said, "No, you've got to drive into the basement like any rational prisoner of war." Well, he asserted himself, and moments later he was killed on the sidewalk outside of his apartment building. There are a lot of problems like that. More than any one person is likely to talk about unless during the preparation for risk management somehow. And that doesn't always attract the best people. That's something that's very certain. So that has to be dealt with. It's like choosing a jury almost, only far more nuanced. But anyway, though a simplified version of all that is that, there are people who have some way of rationalizing that the more top down I am, the more I have established myself somehow. Well, now again, I want to say we can all lighten up, right? I mean, not everybody is as bad off as I am with the more frequent use of a mouse as a dead man switch, during any given session with a computer. Maybe some others do that. We all talk about, surfing the net, or for that matter, surfing the TV with a remote. And that's some indication of what I've talked about, agency, what people think contributes to peace of mind, and I've talked about that elsewhere with other people and so on. But I guess the takeaway is that sometimes I'm a little annoyed. Sometimes I'm amazed by some of the cat and mouse games. Then there's just the opposite. I won't name any particular person, but there's been this long, drawn-out game where there are two people who used to be in touch, and neither one of them is going to send a direct message. And both communicate in the silliest way and sometimes hilarious ways with each other without any direct messages. Not that there haven't been some, but anyway, that's another story. So, that's, the 180, just the opposite of the top-down cliche. I can say, though, after all is said and done, I do appreciate that some have climbed down from, climbed down from their flagpole, or whatever, no matter what flag is flying, climb down from the flagpole and maybe it might be more comfortable without some of the drama. Well, the other point to say is, to emphasize it, I do not understand much about X.com. It's difficult for me compared to what I was used to, and it does seem sort of strangely open-ended, although it really isn't. So yeah, I miss the other routine, and I don't like being abused. And of course, people talked about, events in Louisiana, events in Massachusetts, in California, for naught. And so, I tell you what, some people just lose track of some point of diminishing returns, or they redefine where the returns ought to go or come from, and this and that. And I just said, some people just, are very vulgar. So I prefer not to deal with them. I must say, though, I did get in touch with one group to say, well, what the hell exactly do you mean other than to have me comment? That's basically all there is to it. Well, now you have some comments, and I'm still here, I think I've told you I don't want to live this way under the thumb of people who are really just, I would say, uncompetitive in terms of any merits that I care about and that I appreciate on the part of so many who've combined to mitigate the misfortunes that I've suffered. But after a while, when really it amounts to the fact that in many ways no one's willing to lift a finger, to mitigate what's going on, I don't therefore miss being on a platform that achieved nothing. And by that I mean, I can't think of anything that's happened as a result. Certainly materially, and for that matter, in terms of health, I'm worse off than I've been in a long time. And at my age, that means that my agenda just cannot countenance really the stuff that was a mantra for so very long. I kept protesting. I can say that's died off, sloughed off, in favor of a little more realism, but realism doesn't have to be grim. There's that fact, but then it's true, I'm in a very grim situation in Aniana. The people here don't measure up. They think they do. They tell each other that they measure up. They look far and wide for accolades, and they find them because there are reasons for people to cooperate, and that's why there's a durable consensus. If the internet doesn't work and the platform doesn't work, and for example, you see the bed back there after they stole everything else in here. Those linens have not been changed in over 8 weeks. I'd say 10 weeks. I would estimate that the linens have not been changed in 10 weeks.